It's July 20th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Taeyong. We'll be giving detailed stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the Marine who went missing during search operations for victims of the recent heavy rain. Rescue workers on Wednesday found the body of the Marine 14 hours after he went missing after being swept away by a torrent in Yecheon County. A joint investigation on the flooded tunnel in Osung that killed 14 people will begin today. President Yoon Suk-yeol boarded the USS Kentucky, the American nuclear-capable submarine that docked in Busan, and vowed to take stern action against North Korean threats. And the leaders of South Korea, the US and Japan are reportedly set to meet again for a summit next month at Camp David. The 9th FIFA Women's World Cup, co-hosted by New Zealand and Australia, kicks off on Thursday. 32 countries are competing in the biggest edition of the tournament, including South Korea. The rain has stopped for now here in South Korea. The country is tallying up the devastating effects of this year's monsoon season, including the loss of a Marine during a search and rescue mission. Our Moon Hae-ryun starts off.
The body of a Marine who went missing during search and rescue operations due to heavy monsoon rains in South Korea has been found. Rescue workers found the body of the Marine corporal who was serving with the 1st Marine Infantry Division downstream of the Naseong Stream in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province late Wednesday night, 14 hours after he was reported missing. Marine Corps officials reported that he fell into the stream on Tuesday during a search operation, and a rescue party of some 270 people and several drones had been since working to recover his body. The military is set to investigate the details of the accident as well as supplementing safety measures for future search and rescue missions in heavy rain, after it was revealed that the Marines dispatched to Yecheon County at the time had not been wearing life jackets. This latest casualty brings the number of deaths caused by this year's monsoon to 47, while 4 people still remain missing as a result of heavy rains which have devastated the country for 2 weeks. 14 of those deaths came from the flooded tunnel in Osung County, and an investigation will be launched today to see whether the levee served its purpose and the structure is strong enough to withstand water pressure. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters also reported that 35 people had been injured during the monsoon, with the highest number of casualties coming from Gyeongsangbuk-do Province and Chungcheong-do Province. More than 7,000 people were displaced from their homes over the past few weeks, with nearly half still unable to return home. The natural disaster alert levels remains at its highest level possible, while the Central Disaster Headquarters has lowered its response level to the lowest of the 3 levels of action that can be taken during a natural disaster as rains have subsided. The country will experience a heat wave on Thursday, with temperatures soaring to 31 degrees Celsius and high humidity making feels-like temperatures even higher. The Korea Meteorological Agency issued a heat wave warning for the northern regions of Gyeonggi-do Province and Gangwon-do Province, as well as advisories in the southern regions and Seoul. This heat wave is expected to last until Friday. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And for a swift recovery from the devastating rain damage, more than a dozen regions nationwide have been designated special disaster zones. Now that will allow more state funds to be used for recovery. Kim Jung-si reports.
On Wednesday morning, the government designated 13 regions as special disaster zones. The 13 include central Sejong, Cheongju, and Mungyang cities, as well as Yecheon-gun County in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. The designations were made even before the completion of an overall investigation into the scale of the damage suffered. An official at the Safety Ministry told Arirang News the reason behind the swift decision.
First, the government has a strong determination to take responsibility for restoration in the affected regions. Second, it hopes that with the designations, more people will be aware of the aftermath and thus volunteer to help those in the affected regions. These are some of the reasons that the government decided to respond preemptively.
The Director General added that members of a special response team have been dispatched to 17 cities and provinces to help prevent further human casualties from the torrential rain and conduct investigations. The members will check on emergency repairs to roads, walls, and riverbanks, and will also assess damages and conduct further on-site analysis. With the designation, the special disaster zones can now receive state funds to pay for restoration work and repairs. Up to 80% of the costs will be paid for by the central government. Not only that, but also varied financial help will be offered to individuals, including tax relief and discounts on medical insurance fees and utility bills, among others.
For things that can be repaired quickly, we hope to finish the work within the year. And for those that will take longer to fix, like bridges, for example, we hope to complete their restoration by the end of 2025.
For the areas that haven't been designated special disaster zones yet, due to the continued rain and flooding hampering damage assessments, the government plans to conduct fact-finding as soon as possible and will make additional designations as necessary. Kim Taeyong, Arirang News.
The leaders of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan will meet again next month for a summit at the U.S. presidential retreat Camp David amid North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats, among other regional concerns. According to Japanese media outlets, President Yoon Suk-yeol will meet his counterparts on August 18th after U.S. leader Joe Biden proposed a stateside trilateral at the G7 summit in Hiroshima 2 months ago. This marks the first time for Biden to host foreign leaders at the circuit of resorts and the first standalone summit between the three leaders, as previous sit-downs took place on the sidelines of other summits. Seoul's Deputy Secretary Advisor hinted earlier this week that security and economic cooperation will be on the agenda. And this week, for the first time in over 4 decades, a U.S. nuclear ballistic missile submarine has made a port call in South Korea as a show of force and security commitment against North Korean threats. Our Choi Min-jung explains the significance.
A U.S. nuclear missile submarine arrived in South Korea this week for the first time since the 1980s.
As we speak, an American nuclear submarine is making port in Busan today. It's the first visit of an American nuclear submarine in decades.
The widely anticipated visit of the USS Kentucky comes in conjunction with the inaugural meeting of the Nuclear Consultative Group and one of the historic outcomes of the Washington Declaration adopted by Presidents Yoon Suk-yeol and Joe Biden.
The U.S. Kentucky's port visit in Busan reinforces the United States' enduring and ironclad commitment to extended deterrence and maintaining the capabilities necessary to ensure any nuclear attack by the DPRK against the ROC would be met with a swift, overwhelming, and decisive response.
On Wednesday afternoon, the U.S. hosted President Yoon on board the U.S. submarine in Busan. Yoon said he was relieved to see Washington's most important nuclear strategic asset with his own eyes. The president also sent a strong warning to North Korea.
이를 통해 북한이 핵 도발을 꿈꿀 수 없게 하고 만일 북한이 도발한다면 정권의 종말로 이어질 것임을 분명히 경고했습니다.
The presidential office says Yoon was the first foreign leader to tour the submarine. This demonstrates how close the allies are, as it is considered extremely unusual for a U.S. ballistic missile submarine, or SSBM, to make such a public call at a foreign military port. The 170-meter-long USS Kentucky is reportedly one of the 3 pillars of U.S. strategic assets. It is also capable of carrying over 20 submarine-launched ballistic missiles, which have a maximum range of 12,000 kilometers. The destructive power is approximately equivalent to 1,000 times the atomic bomb Washington dropped over Hiroshima during World War II. The deployment of the powerful asset in South Korea triggered the North to fire 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea just hours after the submarine's arrival. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And the top nuclear envoys of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo will meet in Japan on Thursday to hold talks on North Korea's recent Hwasong-18 solid-fuel ICBM launch. South Korea's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, Kim Gun, will be sitting down with his counterparts from the U.S. and Japan, Sang Kim and Takehiro Funakoshi. The 3 sides are reportedly set to discuss ways to counter North Korean threats and maintain close trilateral cooperation. Thursday's meeting of the 3 nuclear envoys follows their last sit-down in Seoul back in April. On to the latest on the U.S. service member who crossed into North Korea. He is believed to be in custody, but North Korea remains unresponsive to Washington's calls to verify his status. Lee Seung-jae reports.
According to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Wednesday, the U.S. continues to reach out to North Korea to try to verify the status of the U.S. soldier who defected to the north, but to no avail.
In terms of contacts with foreign governments, yesterday the Pentagon reached out to counterparts in the Korean People's Army. My understanding is that those communications have not yet been answered.
The spokesperson says while Washington has a number of channels through which it can contact Pyongyang, he would not go into the details of the matter due to its sensitivity, but added that they have been in contact with their counterparts in South Korea and Sweden, which acts as a diplomatic channel between Washington and Pyongyang. Miller also stressed that both the U.S. and the UN are working together to gather information on Private Travis King, including his well-being and whereabouts, adding that Washington will continue to work to ensure his safety and return him home to his family. Meanwhile, a tourist from New Zealand who was on the same tour from which the U.S. soldier defected to North Korea shared her story of what exactly happened on the day.
It all happened pretty quickly. I probably only saw him running for like a few seconds, and that's all it would have taken to get across the border. And then, a couple of seconds after I saw him, that's when the soldiers shouted and started running after him. And then they told us to get in the building. So it was all a bit of a scramble, and it all happened very quickly.
It still remains a mystery as to how King was able to join the tour, as those wishing to participate usually have to submit their passport information in advance. According to one tour company, King could have booked the tour through a special tour run by the United Service Organizations, an organization dedicated to U.S. service members and family. It added that as the USO operates an information desk at Incheon International Airport, he could have made a last-minute reservation for the tour. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The 9th Women's World Cup kicks off on Thursday, with 32 countries all primed and ready to compete in this year's expanded edition. The pinnacle of women's international football is being jointly hosted by New Zealand and Australia. For more on what to look forward to, we are joined by Mr. Kim Taeyong this morning. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning.
First off, what's so special about the 9th edition of FIFA Women's World Cup this year?
The slogan of this World Cup is Beyond Greatness. I think it's a great slogan, and there are several reasons for this. First, the World Cup is co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand. There is a case in which Korea and Japan jointly hosted the FIFA Men's World Cup in 2002, but this is the first time that the FIFA Women's World Cup has been co-hosted. Also, for the first time in the history of FIFA Women's World Cup, the tournament will be held in Southern Hemisphere. This means that it is now winter in Australia and New Zealand. Weather is always important variable in football. And lastly, starting with this World Cup, the number of participating countries increased from 24 to 32. Personally, I think the World Cup is best with 32 teams.
I see. Co-hosted by New Zealand and Australia for the first time in the Women's FIFA World Cup. And also the weather, like you said, it's an important variable. So that's going to be fun to watch.
It is. It can be pretty cold, but for the players, it will be perfect. So
right.
I think the weather for now is really good for now.
Yeah, better than playing in this humidity at the moment. The Korean team has been placed in Group H alongside world number 13 Germany, Morocco, and Colombia. Now, how competitive do you think Group H is? I mean, what will be Team Korea's biggest challenge?
FIFA ranking are not absolute. However, the highest ranking country in Group H is second place Germany. Korea ranked 17th, Colombia 25th, and Morocco 72nd. From the point of view, Korea's game schedule is not bad, as Korea will play their first match against Colombia, followed by Morocco and Germany. Realistically, Korea need to put a lot of energy into their first game against Colombia. Unlike in the past, the top two in the group advances to the next round. So we need to secure 4 points to have a chance. Korea coach Colin Bell also, he said, results are more important than performance. I think this message is the key. A minimum of 3 points is required by the second game. Colombia is a very tough team. Morocco has speed and technique, but Korea is an experienced team. They won't break easily.
Sure, the first match against Colombia, I believe on the 25th, 24th?
Yes, it is, yeah.
All right. Yeah, that
in
will
Korean
be.
date 25, yeah.
All right. So on the 25th against Colombia, that would be a big match as the first game to really secure those points to get to the next level, right?
It is.
Then what South Korean players should we look out for, and who do you personally look forward to watching?
The Korean national team is on harmony with experience and energy. Members who finished the third in the 2010 FIFA Under-20 World Cup and won the FIFA Under-17 World Cup still play an important role in national team. Korean women's football's icon Ji So-yeon, Do So-yeon, Kim Hae-ri, Kim Jung-min, Im Sun-ju are the main characters. Here, Jang Sul-gi and Lee Geun-min connects the generations, and young players such as Chun Ga-ram, Bae Ye-bin, and Tae Shi-fair join together. For players over 30, this World Cup could be the last dance. So they are the legends of Korean football, and may God bless them.
Right. It may be the last season for them, so that should be also interesting to watch too. Just watch them pull out all the energy and efforts for the one last time.
It is. They did great job for the past time for Korean women's football, and this time the veteran players and young players, they make some harmony. So cross fingers and hope they are doing well.
Right, fingers crossed. Now, the United States, the Team USA, will be looking to make it 3 consecutive World Cup titles after lifting the trophy in 2015 and 2019. What are their chances this year, and what other countries stand out? Spain, England, what do you think?
The United States is the best team in the FIFA ranking and has won the World Cup 4 times in history. They finished third at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but won the 2022 CONCACAF Championship. Currently, the United States boasts a perfect squad. The US faces Netherlands, Portugal, and Vietnam in Group E. The Netherlands may give them a little trouble, but it won't be a problem. I think it'll be helpful for the US to have this World Cup held in British culture. As you told, France, Spain, Germany, England, and Japan, Brazil will challenge for the title. But the strongest team right now is the USA. But nobody knows what's going to happen, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly. Before we let you go, Mr. Kim Taeyong, briefly, what game in the group stages are you looking to look forward to the most, to watching?
As a nation, I'm interested in the games of Asian team. In particular, I'm curious to see how China and Japan will demonstrate their abilities on the World Cup stage. Women's World Cup is getting physically stronger and faster in this trend. I want to see what kind of performance Asian teams with inferior physicals can show.
Sure. Japan against China. That should be an interesting one to watch. All right, Mr. Kim Taeyong, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin on the Crimean Peninsula, where over 2,000 people have been evacuated following an explosion and fire at a Russian ammunition depot. Now, the initial blast occurred on Wednesday in the Kharovsky district, and smaller blasts were heard from the facility for 6 hours afterwards. The cause is still unknown. It follows 2 days of Russian airstrikes on Ukraine's port city of Odesa. There, grain facilities, oil storage tanks, and machinery was struck by cruise missiles and drones. Now, local officials say that infrastructure at the Black Sea port city has been damaged and several residents have been wounded. These are in retaliation for an attack on the bridge linking the Russian mainland to the annexed Crimean peninsula. Moscow has blamed Kyiv for the attack, but Kyiv has not officially claimed responsibility. Unrelated news, a video released on Wednesday appears to show the Wagner mercenary group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin in Belarus. In what may be his first sighting since his attempted mutiny in Russia in June, a man resembling Prigozhin is seen welcoming Wagner fighters and describing Russia's front line in Ukraine as a disgrace. He also hinted that the group's stay in Belarus could be temporary and that they may move elsewhere or rejoin the war in Ukraine at a later date. Prigozhin's whereabouts have been unknown since he accepted an offer to move to Belarus and for charges against him to be dropped in exchange for ending the mutiny. The video is also in line with reports that Wagner fighters are working as military instructors for the Belarusian army. Now, New York City is set to distribute flyers to migrants at the US-Mexico border, asking them to consider another city. The city's mayor's office said on Wednesday that it is struggling to find shelter for over 100,000 people, more than half of whom are migrants. The city says the flyers will combat misinformation at the border and that it will help migrants find other housing. New York City will also give asylum seekers who have stayed in the city's municipal shelters for over 2 months a 60-day notice to find another place to stay. Since last spring, the city has opened an additional 188 facilities, including church basements, gymnasiums, warehouses, and vacant office buildings to shelter asylum seekers. And finally, a building in India has become the world's largest office. After taking over 4 years to build, the 15-floor Surat Diamond Burse will be officially inaugurated by India's Prime Minister in November. It's spread over 140,000 square meters, about the size of 20 football fields and consists of 9 interconnected rectangles. Now, the massive office is located in Surat, which is one of the gem capitals of the world, as it cuts 90% of the globe's diamonds. The office will host over 65,000 gem professionals specializing in cutting, polishing, and trading. The title of the world's largest office had been held for more than 80 years by the US Pentagon.
Good morning. Heat safety is a must today. We're expecting very hot weather across Korea with heat advisories being in place. Heat warnings are in place for south and east of Seoul, which usually get issued around this time, with Jungbok and Daesan known to be the peak of the hottest time of the year right around the corner. Meanwhile, strong sunshine will boost UV rays to a very high level in most regions, with some of South Coast seeing the highest UV level. Don't forget your sun protection today. Meanwhile, there will be passing rain of 5 to 40 millimeters in Gangwon-do and in the south of inland areas, along with thunderstorms and strong winds. Highs in most parts will be 33 degrees Celsius, and feels like temperatures will be slightly higher with the high humidity. And those taking part in restoration work in flood-hit areas, please stay safe in the high heat. The monsoonal front returns later on Saturday, dropping showers into early next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Stay safe wherever you are.